In this demonstration, we're going to look at creating a Bring Your Own Device, or BYOD, guest wireless network for employees. This can be very useful if you're an enterprise wireless network administrator. When employees work for an organization, they expect to be able to have internet access for their personal wireless devices, so they can check social media, email, and so on. We don't want them to use our standard wireless network because that would be insecure. Instead, we can create an isolated wireless network that has access to the internet, but not our internal network. We're going to use this particular vendor's wireless networking equipment. The way you do it with each vendor's wireless equipment will be different, but the same general principles apply. Also, keep in mind that your organization should have a policy in place on how they want to create their wireless networks. Before we go too far, we could start configuring some of the things on a different device. For example, we could use our network security device to create a VLAN and handle DHCP for us. It all depends on how your organization wants to configure things and have them managed. Let's continue. For this vendor's equipment, what we need to do is define a guest access service for our BYOD. Then we need to create a guest wireless LAN. The first thing we need to do is click Networks. We want to choose Create New Network. On this page, we decide on a name. I'll call it BYOD, which stands for Bring Your Own Device. Now we're going to choose Guest for our network type. When we pick Guest, that network will be pre-configured with certain rules and policies to help protect our other networks. Next, we're going to specify that this network will be VLAN 50. This tags the traffic so that our other network equipment knows how to handle it. Now, we need to specify the IP for the BYOD network. I'm going to give it an IP of 192.168.50.1 with a /24 subnet. This can be anything you want, but I like to name things to correlate with the VLAN. So, in this case, I made the third octet 50 to match the VLAN. You don't have to, it's just something I do to help me remember that when I see addresses with 50 dot something, it's VLAN 50. This is a Class C private IP range, and it'll give us 254 IP addresses that we can use. When I hit Enter, it populated some other settings automatically for me. I have the gateway, the broadcast IP, total IP count, the range, and my subnet mask. I'll scroll down a bit and then come over here and click on Update DHCP Range. This populates a suggested range of addresses that I can use for my DHCP and hand out to the guest. It put in 50.6 to 50.254, which is fine with me. By the way, I do like to leave a few addresses at the beginning of my networks for potential static assignments, so this worked out well. I'll scroll down a bit more, and now let's take a look at our DHCP lease time. By default, it's set to 86,400 seconds. For those of you who don't like math, that's 24 hours. Now, I might want to shorten that. If this is an office setting, perhaps 10 hours is plenty. Just do the math and change the number of seconds to satisfy your lease time preference. My DHCP gateway is set to automatic. If my gateway were something different, I could change it, but I'm using the default here. I also have some various advanced DHCP options, but there's nothing here that we need to configure. Just be aware that you do have some additional options if your organization happens to need them. I'll click on Save here and go to the next step. Now that we have our network, we now need to create a wireless network. To do that, I go to Wireless Networks. I have a regular wireless network called CorpNet, but I don't want this being used for personal devices, so I'll create a new one for that. I click on Create Wireless Network. The first thing is to give it a name or SSID. For that, I just name it BYOD to stay consistent. I'll leave it enabled. By default, it's set to be an open network. This is probably not a good idea since the traffic won't be encrypted and others on that network could easily have their traffic captured. I'll change this to WPA Personal and put in a security key here that my BYOD guests will use. I'll check Guest Policy. This will enable extra security options, such as dropping broadcast traffic from users' wireless connections. It's recommended that you check this. Down here, I said that we were using VLAN 50. This is where we put that in. I'm not going to change any of the other settings. We have rate and beacon controls, MAC filtering, and we can configure radius MAC authentication. Once again, we won't configure any of this. I'll click on Save. So here you can see I have my BYOD wireless network in addition to my other wireless network. Now let's look at guest control. I'll click on it, and here I can see our settings. First thing is to check the box to enable guest portal. Here I can decide what sort of authentication I might want to use. It's set to no authentication. I'll leave it set to the default. I can choose how long someone has access before it times out. 8 hours is set by default, but I can change that if I want to. We can use the default landing page our BYOD guest will go to or have it redirected for them. We have other settings such as creating a welcome message or displaying terms of service for those using our network. We can customize the portal. This is what the BYOD guest sees when they connect. I can preview what the mobile users see as well, such as what they see on a notebook or desktop system. I can create a custom background image or a custom logo and upload them instead of the default ones provided. I have all sorts of things I can change, like text, color, and so on. For access control, I can decide what users have access to as soon as they connect, as well as after they connect. I currently have 3 default networks that they're not able to access from the guest network. I can add other networks if needed, or actually allow them access. I won't make any changes to this. I'll click on Apply Changes. The last thing I want to look at is user groups. I'll start by clicking on Create New User Group. For name, I'll put in BYOD. Now, what we're doing here is limiting our users to the amount of bandwidth they're allowed to use. I'm sure you've been to public places and done a speed test only to find that the speed is horrible. Well, this is where the person responsible does this to you. Being greedy with my bandwidth, I'm only going to give my BYOD guests 5 megabits per second for download. For upload, I'm only going to give them 2 megabits per second. I'll click Save and you can see the results. By the way, the default is unlimited bandwidth. That's whatever the max is. That's it for this demonstration. In this demo, we created a guest wireless network where users who bring their own devices can connect to the internet.